you're okay?
Yep. Is there caffeine in the DAPO? In the DOP? Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot? Or?
Yeah, it's 2 shots of espresso with cream. That's all there is. It's basically just shots.
Perfect.
Hey there, what can I get
I'll
started
take
for?
a 8-ounce DAPO, and then I'll take a dollar muffin. Either of the muffins, any of those ones, those overnighters, those dollar ones over there.
Yeah, so.
I'll take one of those.
Anything else?
Just a DAPO,
The doppio?
8 ounce, and that's just
The doppio only comes in the one size. It's just this.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's gonna be $3.24. I'll go grab that muffin.
Can I microwave on that?
Yeah, do you want to kick that?
Couple seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Okay. Sign that. Oops, sorry.
Thank you.
And then I'll get that doppio right out to you, okay?
And starting in February, sometimes will be there on Wednesday and Thursday, which won't affect me a lot. Wednesday and Jeff is working on Thursday. She has her own private practice, practice on the Wednesdays, American Family Therapist. And so she's been instructing people.
Thank you, thank you.
Did you want the whipped cream?
No.
All right, there we go.
I got eggs right there. I'll do it myself. Thank you.
And Rebecca had already about how it was going, and then there were those that didn't care, they did their job, but everything in order, and then they kept their job. But I had no problem about that. Now when I get out of bed, it's obvious. When I first had it, it was a little bit, but now it's a lot. That's one of the things I don't like about doing short hair is you have to do something every day. You have to. Like you're talking to the head, right? If when I come on hair, I'm just going to shower and wash my hair. Let me know you should wash your hair. Don't wash my hair every day since I was except when I go outside. And then it drives me. So I said, I've never had a problem.
News Court of Appeals, 5th Circuit, Savage, Mr. McCardo versus Barr, B-A-R-R, docket 1760202, January 6, 2020. This is 12:38 p.m., January 8th. Petitioner sought review BIO or dismissal appeal from IJ's denial motion to terminate removal proceedings. Order of removal. This is determined removal of the funeral home, processing of the information that is considered undetermined body, and also the administration office that has the constituents of
Well, yeah. Especially if you had
the material in the brain, the material into the digestive system, and the entire contents of the blood, red and white blood cells removed out of the surfaces of the left and right cerebral of the brain. DHS from their seeking petitioner basis is his burglary conviction that becomes convictions of evading arrest with this motor vehicle. His habitat underlying removal proceedings were based on the same nucleus of his operative facts on his denial and petition on his judgment and sentence as he had a petition and review. He was dismissing the reviews on this based on lack of jurisdiction because the petitioner argued if his body of intermediate movements as his first and next immediate family members are off the funeral. Appeal to DH was precluded from the filing second motion to appear. Mrs. and Mr. James L. Dennis, Judge, Mrs. Judge, and also on the driveway system here at the opinion date. The opinion date was January 6, 2020. Area law was criminal law at that being. The United States and Mrs. Tappas stepped in, docket 1810161, January 6, 2020. Judge Kurt Day Egelhard, areas of criminal law, Fisher affirmed defense imposed after pleading guilty to conspiracy and possession, begging and pleading at the Frederick Courthouse and on 56 C Street, right next to 42 George Washington House, pleading and for the service to the government of the United States of America to forgive the defendant of preferring information constitute clear, obvious error and little consequence in his big misdemeanor and felony conspiracy of murder case that came out of his mouth. The government proved that corresponding evidence of drug qualifying at least 45 kilograms, and this acrobat touching my fence line with his possession is 45 kilograms, 2.2 kilos. The defendant failed to carry the burden of proving that he would receive a lesser sentence for talking to the individual, which he did not. Docket number 18.10161, eliciting, slithering into his hole like the snake serpent he is. Now, the dosage diversion class for this area of this George Washington House, they just love Mr. Dick Didier, also Jerry Rice, and Bo Jackson. They were at the Seattle basketball and baseball and also the football league, only allowed. And this is the Millionaire Billionaire Club. They intermit and have conversations, carrying on the presidential ballot form, Secretary Kim Wayne. Her dead body's on the grave. She will rise and wake shortly in 6 hours. And that's the Frederick Courthouse and Melissa McKnight assessor. And this California Court's Appeal during the duration of them taking advantage of her. Mr. Daly Serrati versus Mitchell. Now, Judge Mitchell and Miss Mitchell and Mrs. Miss Mitchell and the little Miss Mitchells, Mumu Ganja, convicted all these individuals on the B293472 on a second pallet dish for opening and packaging at the Christmas tree, honoring the Christmas tree with ornaments. Judge Tracy Bigelow, Big Bigelow, the UFFC, our same judge, sits there eating my food. And they committed on this area line civil procedure legal X because it belongs to the water lines of the United States of America. The plaintiff, this counsel, appealed post-judgment and denying plaintiff, producing the documents imposing $3,456.70, all pennies. because you shorted the United States of America for 30 cents for each dollar, 70 cents that are pulled on to, and that belongs to the United States of America. So this standing council, standing on the appeal order, promptly appealed towards their services and activated services. The damage to 3 laptops belonging and paid for received on the inquiry in the state of Mr. Andy Miller's office. Evanka and Roberta Barela can talk about anything and about everything and anything that comes through the doorway. So that $3,456,000 sanctions against the councils, and figuring the $2 billion for her divorce, of course. She wants a divorce. Evanka wants a divorce, or they're going to have to go live in a cardboard box somewhere behind Sacagawea Apartments, Apartment 205 in Pasco, Washington, and exercise George Washington rights. And I'll have to send off on a position the motion to compel, rejecting challenges to Monterey sanctions against council. Separate motions is not required. Hearing the discovery sanctions held the trial court ordering discoveries, and this is ordering again. And this is Beaver at the Columbia River, Yakima River, and with this Lola Hernandez's house, which is George Washington's house, Benton City, belonged to George Washington long time ago. Every time Benton City was flooded, military staff stood over the bridge, chasing all civilians out of the area because the place is flooded. And there can be a responsibility for civilians drowning on our land. Mrs. Council members, Big Bigelow, UFC, right? Mrs. Trisha's there. She's not very appointed in the discovery sanction. Representative fees, costs incurred in services. Now, save Chucky Chuck, Big Chuck, and that's Bugle Barrow Auctioneer Services. His relations to this docket, B2846, Second Appeal Panel, B8803, Second Appellate District. Paying date January 3rd of 2020. Trisha A. Bigelow Silver, Mr. Rod Robinson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mrs. Schwarzenegger, Mrs. Tracy, office at Jackson Hole, Jackson Services, Jackson, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Briggs Services. Military and Navy SEALs just love having their sexual rotation with Roberta Barela and Bill Gates in the fundamental, of course, that they murdered, of course, because they're not going to surface in the courtroom ever again for this matter. They want to change their life and better themselves. Individuals, Mr. Scalia, have been lowered in my caskets and my determents. And no one can stand some individual, psychotic individual, portraying himself as an individual taking care of people and they were alive, big lie. This falls on Code of Civil Procedures 3401. However, the effective January 1st, 2020, Mrs. and Mrs. John F. Kennedy, Mrs. Kennedy, and Bob Kennedy administration have been removed to turn out of the services. And this is the effective date of January 1st, 2026, and 340.0, and that's 308.080, 360.08442, Washington State Ordinances. This is childhood sexual assault, except third part petitioners until the 40th birthday. Now the court appeal reversed its judgment, held on external limitation period, revised 304.0, applied on the rendered opponents. Timely in the case, files of 40 birthdays have occurred for Denny's, Carl's Jr., and still the same owner, but the behavioral science class are pending on the descriptive 3 paragraphs with detailed facts and information from all childhoods from birth all the way to crawl into the services of the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Taliban, and Bidlands and grandmothers, features immediate mother and father, cave. They slither according to the court remaining for a product here on the information here. So when you YouTube Mrs. McGowan, on YouTube, we're going to have a little conversation. And she's going to point you out, have you taken by your hand, and pulled out in public, and put on the People for People on Palmer. Docket 292450, Second Appellate District Court. Opinion date would be January 3rd, 2020. Judge Kenneth R. Yeagan. In criminal law, that's not Ronald Reagan, it's not Reagan and Nancy Reagan. They want to borrow some money just like Bill, Mrs. McCain, Mrs. McCain, Roberta McCain, and they're still married regardless of what you do. And they want her divorce settlement and give her some more money to pay that off for their services, so they continue changing their name. So this defendant punching the victim, Mrs. King, he suffered blows, contusions to the front of the face, lower the cheekbone, down by the throat of the esophagus. As you can see the indentation around my throat. The court stating the defendant counted attention to attack the victim and did not, uncertain these terms, protect himself with his deadly victim hands. As you see, this defendant punched the victim, fell down in the head on the curb. And this is docket B292450. Very impressive, Mrs. Roberta McKay. He put up one hell of a fight. So did Fred. They killed him. That's Donald Trump's brother. That's what happens when you touch the vagina or any of the victimities of the private sectors of the United States of America. Mr. Andy Miller pronounced heterosexual man or woman and those capabilities for confidential information that carries on these victim cases. And he, she, or he, heterosexual, as they would put it, Mr. Andy Miller, Mr. Come Out of Your Mouth. This information is correct. So the United States versus Mahapolito, docket 1850223. Opinion date would be January 3rd, 2020. Judge Ferdlin, as in KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Ninth Circuit affirmed conviction on this illegal entry for the casino, once called KFC. Now, their service is removing the .223 bullet out of the anus of Doug Carr's buttocks. Their services are going to continue if you cry like a child, because the entries that take your manhood from you will make you drop and cry like the fool you are. You will realize you pull your body off the ground where you were supposed to be dead. Ninth Circuit affirmed the defendant conviction of the legal entry of this deported alien violation on 8 U.S.C. 13 carrying the, of course, kilos upon kilos, hundreds of tons of methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin, and acid. And that's Felix Barela, and this is USC 1326. The revocation expelled on this supervised release. You will never ever be released ever again. Defendant argues should have automatically become United States citizen as a result, naturalized parents that have correlations of disowning their children and father and immediate family, and also the Hishis, you called Hishis here, so disown you. It says the parents are married, deprived of citizenship, and taking care of the children. You did nothing. 8 U.S.C. 1432I required married parents, both naturally confer citizens, man, woman, woman, or man, or he, heterosexual, whatever it might be. This information is not available for you since it's a Microsoft program activated by this finger. Martial status factor, deactive. It is deactive and directive and anti-directive. Citizen and determined in section 1432 violates the Constitutional period. Panel held rationalized basis review applies to section 1432. As separate and apart from these reliant methods versus Ashcroft. And this section in 329 F3D 1062 9th Circuit, holding this section 143 rational, the Confucius, first reaction and the flee of reaction of your service where you want to get on the ground and flee from justice. This section 43 violates the Constitution equals, protects, or guarantees. With your fully fledged elite force uniform, you flee from justice in public. Reasons for separate apart, these relied on Mrs. Bethany Ashcroft, 329. True testimony to the fact of limitation of services to her, housing and equal determinant of fees accumulated over the amount disclosure. Should she be a happy U.S. citizen then? The rationale of these sessions and Mrs. Moore, I said, of the damage vagina, the floating, and the 1 mile stomach, and the mental anguish of the eye sockets for the strenuous sunlight for sun tanning outside on my land. 137 C-Suite 1678 2004. Panel was still bound portion of reasoning by this ultimate holding section 1432 custom. Even as panel are not bound holding bathroom panel conclude that this double dipper, triple dipper, fortnight bowl, peas and carrots, and bread and butter will carry on. Good for you. This descriptive and caffeine will do wonders for your diet products, for your antivirus download system, Microsoft system. It's 24/7. It can be crossly on the crosshairs at 1432A question. Bound and holding Mrs. panel conclude that section 342. And rational Mrs. protecting the parents and rights of non-citizen parents as a legislative purpose, not as a weapon. So I'll take this shank and these weapons from the services on this activated on the First Circuit and continue on Mr. Santiago, United States. I strongly recommend January 4th of 2020 you go to court or be hunted down and processed in front of millions and millions of clients and decision students to show that United States versus UT DACA 181812, January 3rd, 2020, Judge Baudet, areas of criminal law, of course. The defendant will be waived that bill as a felony possession firearm that you possess in your area. The district sentenced defendant 37 months imprisonment. Just for that reason, no lethal injection, and possibly all the criminals that were processed were all criminals and lowered. And the appeal argued that the district court opposed consecutive and concurrent sentences because the witnesses watching this ordeal. Now, the United States government argued that an appeal is barred because pleading guilty. You plead guilty, you are barred. And you're not fighting anything, fighting for your living will or your social security. You're not flying for your last breath of life. You're showing continuous of on a concurrent sentence. You're showing weakness of this pleading guilty.
And I said, I will do it.
Now, Nebraska Supreme Court opinions observe this from perspective, many perspectives, as we put it. The Supreme Court firm ordered District Court denying appellate third motion post-conviction review. Evidently, it's not for sale and never will be for sale, and the United States government is not for sale. The United States government released it to you, the United States government, and you still owe me money. This appellate third motion provision. You take this transaction, take all your money towards your sewer, your water, and your electricity, and all these money will go towards your service reimbursement. Now, this reimbursement will go towards, and you also have an additional deposit in your checking account, savings account on top of that. It says 2015 Nebraska Laws LB Barela section 268, change of death. All Barelas are dead. So this section, this void of Barela section says 268 because they're all dead. The other side is Hernandez. They're all dead because I'm in the doorway, and this services of my land says life imprisonment, reject shown. LB 268, public referred imposed death sentence. Mr. Avak downtown from Melina International Airport with me. And Avak can talk to Roberta, and the services says the concluded defendant failed to allege sufficient facts, demonstrations, violations, constitutional rights, Supreme Court, holding district court. And Miss Avak can talk to Mr. Yates all he wants, because he's free. He killed every criminal convict involved. And you can't do lethal injection, you can't kill him or her or them. And this is docket number. Nebraska 304, 304 pounds. Nebraska 7759. That's lot, food lot, and also cattle company of 10,000 kills. AB shift. Lincoln, Platte, North Platte, Lincolntown, and Mr. Buffett. That's not his house, it's my house. And the administration of Mr. Miller Lerman, Judge Lindsay Miller. She has a criminal law perspective on this one. Now the ice cream is paid in full and received by Wsfb. And Mrs. Carol A. Jenkins and Carol A. Jingle Bells, and Mrs. Carol J. Services with the law firm administration office here at George Washington House. And this is Reentry's German U, which is called Germany U. Citation 301 Nebraska 734, January 3rd, 2020. William B. Castle. Now, Castle has area law and family law practices. Supreme Court reversed the decision of juvenile court, declined the injunction newborn and pleading guilty on the services for this. Opening the services for the state failed to prove the law risk of harm, given any information, intimidation, or whatnot. All witnesses and services contained in this area demonstrated newborn lacking proper parental care due to mother's fault habits. Now, injunction of the newborn had been approved to the hospital with the mother in Nebraska, Kozak, Nebraska, and Lincoln, North Platte, Air Force One. Landing gear was removed, and this is a new Air Force One, and also the service for South Carolina. This is a Dreamliner. Now, living and receiving approximate care services, grandmother and basic children lacking proper parent care, juvenile court declined injunction to children and refused anything for sale. This older sibling, refugee newborn lacking proper parent care, what demonstrates a mother drug to pregnancies, so forth. So this carries on to the docket number of Nebraska 304-734, January 3rd, and that's Alfalfa Heyday, Alfalfa Day. Strawberry Fest comes into effect California, or its OSHA DOSA diversion classes. This is a Holding LC versus Johnson. Citation 304, Nebraska 720. Now, the opinion date, January 3rd, 2020, the rock that's put on TPL and Darrell Johnson's father's grave. Anytime I move an inch or a millimeter, $70,000 paid in full in cash to me. Supreme Court affirmed position, District Court determining that the tax deed obtainment holdings this void of incorrect notice granted counterclaim quiet title by Janice D. Johnson. Owner of record holding summary judgment in favor of Johnson counterclaim. Now, the property, Johnson could redeem the property just grant some in favor of Johnson's non-Johnson reversion, air holdings for delinquent taxes. So this money will be towards your fees, expenses, your electricity, your water, your sewer, pretty much all paid in full. It's 18 years of farm bill. 18 years is a long, long time.
During my 5 days, they have to see it. It can stay pretty generally documented. It can stay up to 14 days, but it can stay longer.
The practice note at state planning and technology internship, practice note in probate in Oregon, and ethics and planning and conflicts and interests in joint representative Texas. Practice note at state planning attorney Compsey, Texas. Practice notes at Texas state planning client capacity in plan Texas. And also the practice ethics plan duty confidentially as demonstrated Texas. Practice note ethics states planning managing attorney client relationship Texas. Practice notes ethics estate planning non-clients paying attorney fees Texas. Standard document revocable joint trust married couples, which is the superseded services. Standard document revocable and joint trust, and you're married forever. Your hands will never be chopped off. as you just demonstrated. You're married for life. And they could talk.
In the background, like
Standard document letter is client revocable trust agreement displaying trust. Marriage couples. Marriage couples. You call that marriage couple? He says, you call that a marriage couple? Here's a demonstration. State Q&A probate service. Secure Act major changes. Stretch IRA. You can stretch out and do an IRA.
you kept saying, I don't want to say. I don't want to say. I don't want to
Mr. Samuel comes into the U.S. presidency and conduct a Owens Commission affidavit presents on the legitimate purpose, just showing his face. And he's a know-it-all, which is, as you can demonstrate, that he is flawless in many ways. As you can tell, that he picked himself up off his services, and the Japanese and Koreans, Vietnamese and Chinese family members and Mr. Service conduct Mr. Agwang and Kang on docket 18402, January 6th of 2020. Judge Mortz. And on December 3rd of 2000, services. Civil War family, international law for war. Japanese Okanagan brought and hung conviction action against the former wife. Brought down from immediate air stance position, and they're going to be shot out of the sky. Mrs. President, and also Japanese ambassador services. The South Korean National Kong alleged that they removed twin daughters from Japan. Gaze University parking lot. They say the twins of Japan and the United States violate the rights because seeking order requiring the twins. Now the district court denied Okanagan petition. Twins removed the United States violation of law. And even if the removal wrong objects in the kind of Japan appeals, Aqua may preach facial. Now, the United States versus Robinson. Docket 18-2165, January 6, 2020. Judge Paul Joseph Kelly Jr., constitutional law criminal. Defendant appellate Jeremiah Robinson, pleading guilty of possession of firearm ammunition by phone. Possession becoming a felony in terms of 84-month imprisonment following the 3 years supervised release. Banishing weapon, having possession of weapon, and also belonging to the United States government, and also the services banished this weapon and his services that can carry on district court finding pointing a gun at a individual, therefore resulting a 4-level enhancement. And pointing at this enhancement, aggravated assault and deadly weapon, 6-level enhancement assaultants on the certain individuals. These officers creating substantial risk of services and deadly services and bodily injury for these services. The district court should have required proof. So usually they usually just get rid of the body and all the witnesses and clear a new slate, and they start a new life. And they just come to this table, this area right here, because they start a new life. Under the standard of the proof, district court enormously drew a negative interference with their silence. The National Association of the Deaf versus, do not forget, the world of pain, the world of regret, the abyss, the black hole, never, ever, ever getting away from any kind of discipulation or miss havoc of anything coming out of your mouth, your blood valves. Docket number 1812786, January 3rd, 2020. Judge Martin, Civil Rights Constitutional Government Administrator. Now, plaintiffs of this asserted filed order suit, Title II, Americans with the Disability Act, Section 504, against several Florida identities and official channeling defendant failure to provide caption and live archived video of Florida legislative proceedings on the front and back, front, upstairs, downstairs, in Washington House. Now, fundamentals of this court agreed district court holding Congress that Congress at fault in any services, and this defendant an 11th man immunity because of the fundamental right to stake and alternate, and Congress validate operandi defendants 11th man immunity, and the fundamental right was to stake. Furthermore, this beautiful stake that sits on the front lawn with a bear trap with sharp razor edges with stake. Any fool puts hand in the bear trap, they would be caught. In open public, with any uniform, as you say, anybody who would get caught. Who would do this? Let's take the bear trap out of your hand and show the public who you are. And it says, this title, number 2, appropriate, responsible history of pandering, unequal treatment to you because you're reaching for me. The court also affirms this court is holding the plaintiffs entitled to pursue declaration of injunctive relief against state officials under the doctrine of ex parte, alleging ongoing violations of Title II. That must be very painful. Did you want me to take the razor sharp bear trap out of your hand, your legs, in public? According to discovery, resolving this question, sovereignty immunity. United States versus Hill, DACA 1910647, Kennewick, Washington. Newly Freedom, of course, it's not too far, just a walk straight to the mansion. If there's anybody in the background or walk around the vicinity of Felix Barela, is executed and put in a bag formally in public. Forbidden possession of firearms, possession of drug paraphernalia, evidence received during the defendant's arrest, suppression of low supervised releasing proceedings, as you can witness these. These poor individuals held a Supreme Court affidavit exploring rules applies on the content. Furthermore, defense failed to apprehend and supersede this incident. Why? The light of Supreme Court's holding the state payroll revocation in context. Sorry, because it's very interesting and surprising release of this individual. The United States versus Hill, DACA 1910646, January 3rd, 2020. Judge per current criminal law. He's very, very, very alert today. Mr. Nisbet, Candler County, Georgia, which is the Georgia peach that I'm eating straight up going up the hill. Digestion is 1 hour. Any valve movement, 1 hour. So, right when you come within the hour, it's Mrs. Edward Carroll Carnes watching for the pooper scooper areas of law of government, administrative law, labor, and employment law. This beautiful peach from Georgia grew on the service of Roberta Barela, was pushed off a tree by immigrants, ISIS, telemarriage services, and also Mrs. and Mrs. Kennedy showing up at 1330 and knocking on the door. Hired Mr. Felix Barela, thinking that he would be prosperous and blindsided by these cannibals, Somali Shiites, and of course, Jessica and Bodacious posh sheriff posse couldn't do nothing about it. Engaging this protected conduct, 11th Circuit, but cautious standard applies claims under anti-Tyler provision on FCA justice. Mrs. FAA and Mrs. FAA. Going over the footage on altering provision FCA. Anti-discrimination provision of age discrimination employment. You can max out. You'd be 190 years old and max out on your tax form, your 401k. You could do anything you want on this land. You can max out and get some money payback. On docket 1841484, play some cribbage, some poker no peak, 7 card no peak, 5 stud. Takes it slow. And this is the FCA, CCA, Pentagon official systematic of the Federal Reserves. And this is the FCA. This is docket number 181484, 14484, January 3rd, 2004. Just a small, minute sample of a millimeter of this very, very official depot drink here at Beachfront. And there's like, don't forget that. This is the depot shot. This is not the depot shot, the quad shot. This fights Black Plague, swine flu, anthrax, and any systematics of Paris Island. If you have some flatlanders who want to fight San Diego's, then they have to go some serious spirit training. Being pepper sprayed for a duration for a straight 90 years consecutive. Mr. J. Mueller is a witness. He loves pepper spray. He loves the smell of pepper spray and tear gas in the morning. And he doesn't. He's an early bird. He's an early bird. This is 509-765-417. This is the service league out of Bistros. It's unbelievable.